What's up, guys? Welcome to the new office. Just got moved in this weekend, and it's been an event because I went to a co working space downtown, and then when I was there, they told me I was too loud. The day I started the lease, like I tried it out for a week, then day one leasing, they told me, "Can I keep it down?" And I was like, "We need to talk about this because this is what I do. Like, I do sales calls, I do this stuff. Like, this just isn't going to work." So here we are, old building, close to home, kind of nice location, but I've got some of my stuff back up on the wall. If you've seen some of my older videos, gonna get this all set up. It's gonna be nice. But the thing I want to talk about is how, I'm designing an environment, but when it comes to just life in general, you're not always going to be able to set the environment up the way you want, or you're going to be a little out of order because your environment is shifting. And that's what I've gone through moving. And I can definitely feel it in, working at Starbucks last week. Like, there's a bunch of stuff going on beyond the computer as I'm doing my sales calls and stuff. And, it's just what I had to do. I had to figure it out, had to keep the ball moving forward. Right. And sales is interesting because it's like, when I think about sales, this type of work, it is about activation, about overcoming inertia, like gaining momentum. Like it doesn't happen without force. Like actions have to be taken on a regular basis. It requires input. It's not going to produce itself again. And what's funny is when you get really caught up in like you're not getting the results that you want, you can feel like you deserve more, you need more, and it creates like this like passive waiting around, sitting around thing where you start to feel a little sorry for yourself, and it's like, yeah, I have moments where I'm like, hey man, I'm kind of like bummed, like things aren't going my way, but it's the jumping back into the activity, like the becoming the person stuff, like doing it because it's what I do, not because of I get out of it. It's like working out this morning. Like I'm finally getting back into the rhythm of working out again. And I'm a former gym owner, right? And so like I kind of been struggling the past 6 months, but I finally have gotten back into it. And I feel better, not just physically, but by doing it, it puts me in a certain state because number one, physically I'm in a better state. But because I took the action, I feel better about myself. I look at myself differently. So therefore I show up differently. And in sobriety, it's really similar. Like it's not that you have to spend every day like you're on, you're trying to like stay away from relapse, which I think it's a negative downward spiral anyways, to avoid relapse. But it's like, no, like you want to live a life of proactivity. Like you want to live a life of taking action, and I can't think of many times in my life where, I just had this day off where I did nothing and I actually felt better at the end of the day. Like I definitely, don't get me wrong, like do rest and do take some time, but like I feel better when I'm giving inputs, like when, like if I'm off, but like I'm spending time with my family, even if I'm tired, I never feel worse when I spend time playing physically with my kids. I never feel worse when I go fishing. Like I never feel worse when, we go on a hike or I go play pickleball or, I go make sure we get the groceries. Like I never feel worse after that stuff. I always feel better because those actions lead to the outcomes that I want, but like I'm not dependent on those outcomes happening today. I'm doing them because of where they take me, but they have this like internal belief creating like trait to them where I just hung out and played with my kid. I automatically feel like I'm a better dad because I did the action. So I did it because of who I want to be in the future and the outcomes I do want, but it was more about how I showed up today. So that when I get to the end of the day, I can like sit down and say, hey, what did I do today? Like what inputs did I have? That's really important to me. And so, when it comes to moving, being out of place, all that type of stuff, like I find that even when things were like feeling a little bit out of place and, I wasn't in a place like this where I have everything set up and it's all designed to be easy, which makes it easier to do, more likely to happen. Yes, that's great. But when I showed up at Starbucks with my laptop and my AirPods and I just kept doing it, even though it wasn't ideal, by showing up and doing it, it changed my internal state, right? It set me up to see myself a certain way, to view what I was doing a certain way. And the more that I do that, the more that I feel like the type of person I want to become. the easier it is to move forward, right? And so it's like I said, that's sales, right? Like it requires input, it requires that. But like the way I look at myself as an effective salesman, like I look at the outcomes, but I've noticed that the outcomes are usually directly tied to how I show up, what state I show up in, and then how consistently I do it. So like when I'm exercising, when I'm getting the best sleep that I can, when I'm eating fairly well, I just feel better, I show up better, I perform better. So it's like, how do you show up? Sobriety is the same thing. Like, are you building relationships with people who are, sober and like they live good lives and like they model what that looks like? Are you getting around other people who are making progress in their lives, who are not trying to stay the same? They're trying to incrementally improve over time, and not in like an unhealthy grind hustle type of way, but like focused, clear, consistent, moving forward. Like those things are important. So it's like the setting up of this environment is very much like how we choose the things, the inputs that we do in our life. Like I set this up so that when I come in, there's very little friction to the work I do. Well, that's what I try to do in life. Like, working out, spending time with my family, having boundaries for work, like all those types of things, they are environmental things. Like I'm choosing the environment so that I show up a certain way. So, this is just the beginning, like the office is going to look different. Like I'm going to get some cool lighting, I'm going to get some shelves on the wall just so it's set up properly. But the whole point of setting it up though is like I'm trying to cultivate a certain line of behavior by generating an environment, and sales is like that. Sobriety is like that. Like when we focus on our state, like how we show up, we're usually going to outperform than when you just try to, look around and think about, well, I should be getting more out of this, or like, I feel like I'm working really hard, or I'm doing all these things. Like that's all the strategy stuff. And Tony Robbins talks about state, story, strategy. Like the state creates the story you tell yourself that influences the strategy. I've always gotten better results that way by focus on state and story first. Like what state am I in? What stories am I telling myself? When I start with strategy, like I'm trying to do tactics, but if I'm not getting a result, I get this bad story and it affects my state. So I just want to encourage you, there are inputs that are required on a daily basis, but normally the ones that put you in the right state deserve more of your attention and effort. And then it tends to cascade out of that other things work better. Like waking up a little earlier puts me in a better state. So I could just hit snooze and sleep later or not get certain things done. But when I wake up early, have some coffee, and get some action done on something, I just am in a better state. Even if I'm a little more tired, my general state, mental, fit, all of it is better when I do that. So it can be contrary to say, oh, well, I'm going to wake up early, but I didn't get enough sleep last night. Even though I know that if I wake up early, get my coffee, and do a couple of tasks just to get some momentum, that puts me in a better state. Even though I had a little less sleep, I can sleep more or have a better night's sleep the next night. I know I'm not going to, not sleep every night. So, but in that case, it can be easy to say, oh, I'm not going to do the thing. I'm just going to sleep a little more because I need more sleep. No, my state is always determined by normally getting up early and getting something done. Like that really helps me a lot. So I just want to encourage you, like look at your life and see where are there places where it puts you in a better state. But if you listen to too many other sources and you don't do the internal work of looking at what works well for you, and you see, oh, like there's an idea of like, yeah, maybe I need a little more sleep, but like if I wake up early, I just feel better. Like the whole rest of the day tends to work better. And if you start framing and building your day like that, you'll tend to have a better result. So just want to encourage you, man. Thanks for following along. I noticed I got a few more subscribers on the last video, so that was cool. And that just, I knew I needed to just hit record and keep talking about the journey, and just encourage you guys in your sobriety, career, wherever you're at, just constant forward tension, man. What are the inputs that put you in the right state? Prioritize those. I'll see you guys later.